needs. So if a child is specifically struggling with decoding, we might pull those decoding lessons from Amplify, and just that child or a small group of children will get those specific lessons in order to help improve their decoding skills. So they're really individualized, and we're going to be doing the same with math with that new intervention program I will talk about. Individualized student plans for SEL usually involve some private counseling, whether it's in school through our Jefferson program or outside of school that the parents set up, or some individualized student plans in the classroom where we're really like tracking student data and rewarding that student constantly in the classroom setting. So Do the Math is the program that we decided on for our intervention program. We are ordering it next week as soon as some carryover funds get placed into my budget. And this program is intended to help students build their numerical reasoning and that math confidence. So we have our Into Math as our universal Tier 1 program. So this is actually focusing on Tier 2, Tier 3. We would only implement the progress monitoring, so you have the 30-minute half-hour lessons, pre- and post-module assessments, step-by-step instructions for teachers, the mid-module assessments for progress monitoring. That would be with Tier 3 students. The students in Tier 3, we usually progress monitor every 2 weeks so that we could try to see whether that student continues to grow at their own level, at their own rate, or if they plateau. And then we have to have some other conversations about what supports we would have to put in place. The program also includes some fun games and manipulatives that get kids interested in math and having a little more fun with the material, and it has an online component as well. Within reading, Lucy Calkins came out with new units of study. We've been using Lucy Calkins for our reading and writing work for years, but she finally put out her new units in K-2. Those units embrace phonics and the science of reading a little bit better, so kind of what we purchased Amplify for, to like diagnose where those students are having the most difficulty. Lucy's units actually teach to those components as well now. So it's a nice little marriage with the Lucy Calkins units and the Amplify system we just purchased. They include daily structured phonics lessons to be used with the whole class, special books and assessments to track student progress. It replaces late reading assessment with complex and rigorous text, and the new units also include a comprehensive guide for teachers that summarizes the 50 years of cognitive research on reading, which is like the science of reading. So we're very happy that Lucy decided to put those new units out. For our SEL program, we purchased an online program called Character Strong Purposeful People. Again, this is just so we have more explicit direct skill instruction designed to lead in these 3 powerful outcomes. We love them. It's be kind, be strong, be well. Be kind, of course, focuses on social and emotional social skills, conflict resolution. Be strong is all those executive functioning, focusing, organizing, goal setting. Be well, wellness strategies, emotional regulation. So we're very excited. They have cute little characters. The kids are very interested. You can pull a lot of the lessons right up on the Mimeo board. Focus is usually on 1 character trait per month. It's aligned to the CASEL competencies, which is what our SEL curriculum in our district was written based off those CASEL competencies. And it's just like very quick 20, 30-minute lessons that teachers can pull up and go to town with. And they have a ton of resources that they can print. Faith Vistas, our media specialist, was also kind enough to work with this company to find out what books they recommend. So all of the books that they discuss that we could pull up online, she also ordered hard copies of, so we have in our library now. So she was awesome for doing that. New with health and physical education, pretty much we're staying the course other than a few lessons that had to be added based on the new 2020 New Jersey Comprehensive Health and Physical Education standards. So we do have all of the curriculum posted on our district website. In addition, families were emailed in an Oaklyn newsletter the specific link that takes them right to the curriculum and right to the opt-out form if they choose to use it. The curriculum will be taught by our homeroom teachers in collaboration with school nurses and our school social worker. And we are not rolling out the new part of the curriculum until 3rd marking period after parent-teacher conferences, so that will give us a nice chance to maybe display some of the resources in the grade level classrooms. Parents can ask questions, teacher can answer any last minute questions they might have before they make the choice to whether opt in or opt out. And we'll be super prepared, and everything will be very transparent as to how we're going to roll out specific lessons within the health curriculum. We're improving communications through a newsletter called S'more. No, it's not a yummy thing you hold over the campfire. It is a newsletter template. The administrators have been using it for about 2 years, but with grant money, we were able to purchase a district subscription so that I could encourage my teachers to try to get some communications out using the S'more. Even if they want to send like an email to a specific family, they can actually put it in a S'more template, because once you send a S'more link, a family can open it and translate it into any language they want. So that is the beauty of S'more. We're just looking to improve communication among all families in Oaklyn. And it can also be accessed via computer and a mobile device. So I did not want Mrs. Soloway to drive all the way out here on a rainy night, the night before our half day for the holidays. So I will present her slides, so bear with me because this is not my work, this is hers. But what's new in preschool? So we pretty much collaborate on all of this anyway. We just had our CPI training, that's crisis prevention intervention, for the K to 5. Preschool just had their Handle with Care training in November. So the Handle with Care program is just a little bit more appropriate for the younger population, and it went over really well. The assistants and the teachers loved it, so that was a success. All of the preschool staff is in the process of being certified in what's called Inter-Rater Reliability, IRR, this year. So what is that? It's really just a course they're taking. They can actually get certified, and it's to help the teachers make accurate assessment decisions. So they use an assessment system called GOLD, and what they're saying is if they collect a bunch of evidence on a student in the classroom, they then have to score that evidence and give that child a score on a scale from like a 1 to 4. So it just kind of creates that consistency among all the preschool teachers, where if they're looking at a certain set of evidence, would they all score that the same way? Administrators kind of do the same thing with Danielson when we go in to score our teachers on the rubric 1 to 4. So every year we have to do like co-evaluations so that we make sure that we're aligning ourselves and we are kind of coming up with the same scores. So that's exactly what they're doing in preschool to help provide those accurate assessments of the children. But it also provides us with information to guide our professional development, because as they go through the course, it's collecting data on how well the teachers are doing in all of the areas, so we could use that to guide preschool professional development. And then, like I said, the certification is renewed, and they have to renew that certification in Inter-Rater Reliability every 3 years. Additional in-person parent involvement activities have been scheduled this school year, so parents are getting into the preschool classrooms, and those activities are focused mostly on the curriculum. So the parents will see how a teacher actually implements a read aloud, what happens during choice time, what happens during gross motor time. So it's really cool. It's kind of tying that parent relationship to the school, and if you want to, follow through with any of those activities at home, it makes it a little easier when you know what's actually happening in the classroom. We, as administrators, are using the Fidelity tool to determine how well our teachers are implementing the creative curriculum. That is a state tool, the Fidelity tool. On February 15th, we're excited to have our teachers and instructional assistants visiting one of 4 different participating districts to observe practices in some of the districts who've had this preschool program up and running for a longer period of time, and we're planning some half-day visits as well. Also, Ms. Taylor, they really like these. We have a PIC, a CPIS, and a PERS, so I will explain them to the best of my ability. Ms. Taylor is our preschool instructional coach, otherwise known as our PIC. And she is implementing monthly coaching cycles with all the preschool teachers, as well as optional coaching cycles on topics that the teachers might be interested in themselves. So she's just like the know-it-all of creative curriculum. She's like the preschool curriculum guru. She knows all about classroom arrangement, all about scheduling, all about what works best to get the different components implemented during the day. She's been a huge asset to the district. Mrs. McCall is our community and parent involvement specialist, otherwise known as our CPIS, and she's also been visiting classrooms this year to lead some SEL activities. In addition to other programs, she does the Penguin on Wheels, stands outside and gives out all the information to our parents when they're coming up for arrival. Food pantry, outside community organizations. She helped organize the PTA preschool night. She helped organize all those meetings at Night Park, parent get-togethers, play dates. She is another huge resource. And then new this year, Mrs. Sharon Dixon, she was on the child study team. She has made the transition to the preschool PERT team as our PERS, the preschool intervention referral specialist. So what she does is sort of what we're doing with our MTSS for K to 5. that's like the preschool version of that. So any students who might be experiencing some difficulty transitioning into the classroom, mainly based on social emotional in preschool because we're not requiring much academically at that time other than exposure. Um, she would intervene and they come up with a plan for the teacher. They track some data, and if necessary, we have all of that stuff on file and documented if we have to take any other steps to get that student special support. Wanted to highlight Mrs. Schneider. She's actually our preschool through 5 now Spanish and ESL teacher. She was visiting the preschool classrooms as well as my K to 5 during Hispanic Heritage Month, reading books to all the students all the way down to preschool. And she also is now pushing in, due to the new state mandate, she's pushing into classrooms for the multilingual student support as needed. So our ESL or ELL or MLL, whatever they are going to call it. So she works with our MLL learners now as an ESL teacher in the preschool classroom. So again, we do not have to pull them or provide specific direct services, but we do have to identify the preschoolers who are MLL learners and provide some support through our district ESL teacher. Tongue-tied on that one. That's all I have for you. So any questions?
I have 2 questions. One, when students, this is probably a dumb question. When students are being pulled out for, tier 2 and tier 3 intervention,
Yes.
is it the learning acceleration teachers who are implementing that?
It can actually be both. So they work as a team, and with tier 2 specifically, it's always the classroom teacher is always involved because that's small groups. So they're just rotating them through different groups. Sometimes it's learning acceleration, sometimes it's a teacher, they co-teach. If it's tier 3, maybe 80% of the time it will be the learning acceleration teacher, but if a teacher has some extra time and can pull that kid aside even during small group and then implement something specific just for that child, we're encouraging them to do it because the more we get that child working and improving the skills that need to be improved, the better off we will be. So it's kind of a partnership, I guess.
Well, and my other question was just about the s'mores, which is great because that is a really, especially the translatable capabilities. If members of the community have signed up to get updates, so this won't go to only parents of OPS students. Does it go to
once
any other
I
community
start
members?
using it for my newsletter, it will go out through ThrillShare. So yes, I'm assuming we can send that out. We'll have to just discuss that because we have a lot of student pictures and things like that we say are only going to be used through the district.
Right,
So
right.
making that a community blast versus a school blast would just kind of change the way we do things.
Maybe
a little
we
bit,
can talk in committee about. It's just such a great tool, and it's great, and it's wonderful how you're always sharing that with our board too.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, it could be where I just cut off
Right.
like the bottom section and create a different link for that, and I can access them. I believe I'll talk with Patrick and Molly, but through ThrillShare the same way. I'd just be using that system to pull those email addresses if they're housed in ThrillShare and then send it out that way.
Okay, thank you.
My question was also about the s'mores. So you said ThrillShare. I just looked that up. So it's going to come out through email?
So the s'more actually, once you're done a newsletter, it creates a link. So it's just a link. So I could put that link out in an email. I can put it out. ThrillShare is just the system I use. It's through our website, actually, but all of the Genesis is tied to ThrillShare, so we'll pull all of the parent emails out of Genesis so that they're accurate and up to date because it updates every night. So that's just the platform we use to get like those mass emails out to everybody pre-K to 5. But it's just a link, so you could put that link anywhere. I could link that to a text message.
Oh, then that was going to be my follow-up question: is can we get back to doing text?
Yep.
That'd be great.
The texts are not going away.
Awesome.
Really
That's great. That's the main way that I can communicate.
Yes,
like,
I know. It's easy.
So,
Pops right up on your phone. You click it open, and
exactly. Great.
there it
awesome.
is.
Thank you.
Jen, I have a question. Two questions, actually, I guess. About how many English language
Under 10
learners?
because we only have to provide services, not a program this year.
I'm sorry, say that.
Under 10 in the whole
Under
district.
10? Okay. Second question, when we're pulling kids out for, say, one-on-one, the classroom teacher is continuing with
Yes.
the learning process. How does the kid that we're one-on-one with stay abreast when they're
Yes,
not
so
in this part
that's
of it?
where we fix the schedule. We actually have tiered intervention time built into the schedule. So I should say when we're pulling out, I just mean when language arts intervention time for the 30-minute block, we divide our students up based on the tier. Everybody's getting specific instruction at their individual level at that point. So the teachers actually switch students. If they're 2 second grade teachers, like the students in the high tier go to one teacher, the middle tier go to another, the lowest students would go with the learning acceleration teacher, and that's how they get that one-on-one or small group time. Same thing for math. We have a 20-minute math intervention block built into the schedule where every student in that grade level is doing the same thing at the same time on their individual level. Then they push back in, and everybody has the math lesson, and they're exposed to the math lesson and any small group math work in the classroom.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So that's how we scheduled that.
Yeah, I'll just
purposefully.
add to that. I've observed that as a parent because the timing, I guess I was reading or something in the classroom, they just have specific places in the classroom,
Mhm.
right? Like if you go to the
Yeah.
back table, and I'll just commend it in that there's no stigma around
Not at
which
all.
location you're going to, and
They move
everybody
all
is
over the
truly
place
getting
so
taught
much all
at the
day.
same
They
time.
have
It's
no
so
idea where they're
awesome.
moving to.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I'll just add to that too. Last year, my twins were in separate classes, but they would go for the same teacher for like spelling, and that would be their spelling teacher. So they shared classroom teachers,
Yeah.
which is great. I just have a question about the preschool.
Mhm.
So the staff, not including Mrs. Snyder, but the other ones, they're all through the preschool grant. Is that
Yes.
correct? And
Yes.
they're also shared
Shared
with
service.
Collingswood.
Yep. You
Perfect.
got it.
Okay, cool. Just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
And they're mandatory positions to run the program. We have to have them in place.
Anyone have anything else? All right.
All right.
Thank you so much. That was
Have a
great.
good night.
Do we have internet yet?
Yes, I came back.
All right. I'm going to try to log in, but we'll move ahead to section 4, Committee of the Whole. Is there a motion to go into Committee of the Whole?
So moved.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All right, we are now in Committee of the Whole. Does anyone have anything to bring to Committee of the Whole?
I want to beat a dead horse a little bit more. Keeps trying to get up. Uh, School safety, transportation to and from school, not transportation, walking to and from school.
Mm-hmm.
I had some discussions with some of the Collingswood folks a while ago about the crossing at Whitehorse Pike. Collingswood, not the school district, but the borough doesn't seem terribly interested in pupil safety. The things that we were going to do in 2 weeks, it's been 2 months and nothing's happened yet. In thinking about it, the crosswalk at the Whitehorse Pike is at the wrong location. The kids tend not to use it anyway. A better spot would be at CVS, where everybody, the pinch point is at the bridge. You put the crosswalk right at the bridge on the Oaklyn side, and it's easier for them to use. And they could put one of these flashing crosswalks signs in that I've asked about. I think the Oaklyn board and the Oaklyn borough should petition whoever we have to petition, probably the New Jersey DOT, to put a crosswalk in at that location for the safety of the kids. Collingswood just hasn't followed through on, and again, it's not the school. Collingswood Borough has just not followed through on anything that they had told us they were going to do. So it seems if we want to prevent some kind of a tragedy, we probably ought to do it ourselves.
Does anyone have anything to add to that?
I would sign the petition. So, and I think most people would. So.
I just have a question because I haven't been part of any of these conversations. Has anyone had conversations with the police department or
Yes.
anybody? And just
Yes.
because I traverse that, I pass that on the way to middle school drop off every day. Imagine if there was a crosswalk, it's already hellish traffic. It could cause even worse traffic. So I would fear, I'm all for this, but I would fear that might be some of the pushback. There should be a traffic light, but there isn't.
Where are you talking about this? Behind the school? Behind the middle school?
On the White
No,
Horse
no,
Pike.
on the
Oh,
White Horse Pike. So what, I mean, I don't see too many students walking. Honestly, my observation
It's true.
on that side, I see them all on the other side. I do see students and children riding their bikes, but it's a downhill, number one, at the CVS, so people kind of speed up. If you're trying to make a left onto it, which I often am, it is a speedway back and forth. And then once you get up to Collins Ave intersection, it's a bottleneck. So I imagine it would cause traffic all the way back to like Clinton, is what I could foresee that happening. And I'm just wondering if maybe that might be part of the pushback. So
I'm open to any option that anybody has that's going to make it a little bit safer. Students, as far as I know, have not been hit by cars there. Adults have been hit by cars there, at least one fatally. There was a fatal accident at Collins Avenue this year with a young man who was not a student, but he was killed at White Horse Pike and Collins Avenue. It's a dangerous road, and we can't seem to get any activity. Two thoughts. Our school, SLO, is that a function maybe that he could handle?
So the direct communication that you had with Chief Carey, I mean, trumps the SLO. And so Chief Carey he was the former head of Public Works. And so going through, I actually have a meeting scheduled with Chief Carey on Monday. I will bring it back up again with Chief Carey and see who we can elevate it to. If his initial request with the new head of Public Works was insufficient.
He had told me he had already made that request. In fact, his wording was he has put a work order in.
I can check the status of
I understand.
of the work order, and then
Just so
I'll go
you know.
directly to who the new head of Public Works is and see if I can push that also.
Okay, one of the things was not Public Works, it was a speed sign, that flashing sign that says you're doing 700 miles an hour as you go past.
Right.
That was supposed to be put on the White Horse Pike after it was done with the incredibly important traffic survey on Haddon Avenue. So when they got that done, it was supposed to go over. I haven't seen it yet. The other thing and this just happened yesterday.
I'm sorry. Can I chime back in on the crosswalk thing?
Sure.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Before you move on. So two different things, but I would not want to get rid of the crossing guard at the light, which is
Oh,
at
no.
Clinton at Whitehurst Pike, which is
Yeah.
what I thought that you had indicated.
No.
No. Okay, perfect. So I
No.
just want to clarify because I do see kids not walking, riding their bikes, and the crossing guard is wonderful there, and it's great because it's the light. It does make me nervous having a crossing guard on that street not at a light. So I feel like there would need to be lots of flashing lights, which I believe they have in Haddon Township.
They do.
On MacArthur, where it's not a light, but there's a lot of flashing. So I would want to see that in addition to a crossing guard. So not a
That's
crossing.
preferable. I would prefer that.
Right.
Haddon Township also has it on Nicholson Road, so Haddon Township has at least two
Right. Yes.
that they're doing that with, but they're not state highways either. Obviously, that's going to
Yeah.
enter into it.
Yeah, I would also caution. I actually had this happen last week, and it drove me crazy. But I was stopped in front of this school at the crosswalk for pre-K kids to pass a day when the crossing guard was not there, because I think Collingswood had early dismissal, Oaklyn didn't. And a car tried to pass me. And if they had passed me, they would hit the kids. And so that makes me nervous on Whitehurst Pike so many times, is that if a car is like they're going so fast there. So I think first and foremost, flashing lights, that needs to be. And I will sign whatever petition that is, because I avoid that crosswalk all the time. I don't drive that way. It gives me anxiety. So I go the long way around, which is where I pass you every morning, to go to the light so I can cross the street, because I do not like going that way at all. But anyway, you can move on to the second topic.
Well,
I had
I
a
just-
question. I'm sorry.
I wanted to add
Go
into
ahead.
that I agree with the safety and I wouldn't be against anything like that. But I've been driving on the Pike to take kids to drop off for the last 3-4 years, I hardly see any children walking on the White Horse Pike. So exactly like if
Yeah.
I see kids cross, I do see kids cross at the light, but I hardly see any kids on our side of the pike driving. So I would want to know, is there a need, like, how many kids are actually doing it? Like,
Which,
I think it's important to
that's-
have. Don't get me wrong, because I think other people could benefit from it too.
That's what I was going to say, devil's advocate. So
Yeah,
I'm taking
but-
the kids, I'm taking a handful of kids to middle school on a bike every day, and we take East Haddon.
Yeah.
Yeah, we take East Haddon to Bettlewood and then around, and
Mhm.
we pass all the kids. Like, all the kids are taking that
That's-
route because
that's-
it's also scenic.
Well, and I thought that's what when we first made the talk, we had the discussion about moving over there. The White Horse Pike was a big concern about everybody,
Mhm.
and that was the thing was, well, encouraging them to cross at the light and to go that way or whatever, at least to be on that side of the street. Because if they're on that side of the pike, they're fine. It's crossing the pike that's a problem. But like I said, I see no kids walking the pike.
now,
I
there,
think-
there are not a lot of kids. Now, which one are we willing to sacrifice to?
I don't want to sacrifice any, and I'm not saying that it's not a good idea to have a crosswalk there in general. But I do think that if you're gonna push that it's for the kids, like we should kind of have data to show whether or not kids are actually.
I think it's more of a municipality thing,
Yes.
like, because there's a lot of, like, people that are just walking around,
Right,
walk
right.
to CVS and stuff like that. So
It would benefit every
Yep,
people, but it
for sure.
might be that might be the better angle than school because there's not a lot of kids on that street.
1-2 punch, do both.
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly. That's all.
Whatever it takes, that's fine. In the afternoon, in the morning, I'm not up there in the morning. I just don't see who's there. But in the afternoon, there are kids who walk there. There might be 20, 25 kids in staggered. I mean, they don't all walk together. It's one now, 10 minutes later, it's another one. So it's a long thing. But in the afternoon, I do see some kids. But you're right, there are not a lot of them. And speaking of crossing guards, the crossing guard that Collingswood has at Collins Avenue and White Horse Pike, she's been there for a few years. It's the same lady. I see her all the time. I go up there a lot. Went up there yesterday. I'm driving up the White Horse Pike toward Camden. I get to Collins Avenue. The light is green for White Horse Pike for me and the car that was in front of me and the cars that were behind me. And the lady crossing guard wanders out into the middle of the pike, holds up her cute little sign that says stop, and stops traffic. That's not how the system works. If the crossing guard can't get it right, the kids were smart enough, they were holding back. But she goes out and stops traffic, and now the little kids, I guess they're from Sharp School. They were going toward Haddon Avenue. So again, just a little training or reinforcement or verification or something, because she also doesn't understand the left turn arrow, that you're not supposed to walk across the street while the left turn arrow is on. She does that all the time. But this one where she stopped traffic on the pike to a green light is the one that, in fact, I had to mention it to her. But I was relatively pleasant.
That's when I get scared that the car that's behind the car that doesn't see, they're going to go around. And that just makes me nervous.
Okay, end of rant.
Well, while we're on the topic, I might as well.
Pat, you got something else?
I'm sorry. The crossing guard at Clinton and White Horse Pike took a day off, like I don't know, maybe a month or two ago. She told me that she wouldn't be there and that the police were going to sub in. The next day, there was no police there. So, just throwing that out there.
All right, does anyone have anything else for committee of the whole? I have one thing, and it's just something that's later on our agenda, but I just thought I would mention it here. So part of the miscellaneous section down on the agenda is the CUSAC, and I just wanted to mention because I had a question about it. So on the score page, you'll notice that there are 0 scores for instruction and program, and that's because the county scores us. So in all the other areas, we score very well, but it looks like we have a 0 score. It's just because they're not scored yet. So in case anyone had a question about that. So I just wanted to mention that because I was confused. couple other things. Rich is not here tonight, but I think a couple of us went to the school board's workshop down in Atlantic City. He happened to be there all week and came back with a lot of great information. So one of the things that we had discussed in committee, and I just wanted to mention it here since I don't know if it hit every committee, but one of the things we had talked about is that when there's like a public comment and a member of the public has something that they have a question about, that it might be nice if the following meeting, like if we don't have an answer that night, that the committee chair then report back so that there's just some more transparency and openness. And I thought that was a great suggestion, so I just wanted to mention that. And I think that's all I have. Anyone else? All right, is there a motion to come out of committee of the whole?
So moved.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. All right, moving forward to section 5. Here's the list of future important dates. Tomorrow is an early dismissal for all students. The school is closed on Thursday and Friday this week. The Collingswood Parade is on Saturday. I know the Oaklyn PTA is participating in that, as is I'm sure some schools in Collingswood, but the Collingswood Middle School musical is going to be walking in that as well, so that'll be fun. And then PTA meeting on December 5th, and it looks like there's an AMASAC gym night too coming up, and then parent-teacher conferences the week of December 11th. Moving to section 6, this is the approval of board minutes from our October 17th meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No? All right, they are approved. All right, now section 7. This is our first public comment section. This is for items listed on the agenda only. There will be a second section at the end of the meeting for additional comments. If you have something to bring to the board, please stand, state your name and address, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. And the public is reminded that attempts to resolve all concerns and complaints should first go through appropriate staff members and administrators. Please remember that the public comment section is not designed to be a Q&A, and comments or questions that require follow-up will be noted by the board secretary and directed to the appropriate administrator for follow-up, and then hopefully then reported back in the next meeting. Does anyone have anything at this time? All right, hearing none, moving on to section 8, the superintendent's report. Dr. McDowell.
Okay, so good evening, everyone, in this lovely rainy day that we're having. Section 8.01 is the attached enrollment report. October of 2022, enrollment was 280. As of October of 2023, it is 270. Also attached 8.02 is the school safety drill report. In addition to just a couple of announcements that I wanted to share. And so for the 2 weeks leading up to the Thanksgiving break, we asked all of our schools to identify creative ways to incorporate more gratitude and to get really creative. And so next leadership team meeting, they will be highlighting what each school did. What we're really focused on is trying to combat negativity bias. And so negativity bias is a tendency to register negative situations and dwell on them. And what ends up happening is that the bias tends to overwhelm and limit one's ability to see the things that are positively taking place. And so what we wanted to do is that we wanted to model, highlight, and really focus in on student achievement that we know is happening across our schools, and to be able to highlight the positive things that students are doing day in and day out, and have some fun with it. And so we matched that and paired it with the Thanksgiving season. And so we know that when gratitude is used consistently, especially in a classroom environment, It can help establish a healthy culture. It increases young people's feelings of optimism and joy. It decreases anxiety and depression, and it helps students to feel more connected to their school and to their classmates. And so that's been our focus for the last several weeks. And so we're going to see, and we'll for the next board meeting, we'll be able to highlight what we did here in Oaklyn, and also we'll share with you what the middle school and what the high school did with students. As part of our continuing efforts to elevate student voice, we met with diverse groups of students in grades 6 through 12 on October 26th and 27th. We received a lot of positive feedback from middle and high school students, students representing Collingswood, Oaklyn, and Woodland. And we asked them questions to the tune of, what do you like about school? What do you not like about school? If you could change one thing within your experience, what would that thing be? Identifying programs or activities, things that you would find valuable as a student. And then we wanted them to compare school culture this year versus last year. We wanted there to be also to be some level of reflection. And then the last round of questions that we ask each of those groups is, how do we improve our college and career readiness efforts through the lens of a young person? We got a lot of really positive feedback. And so some of the things that students really highlighted was that a sense of more connectedness, more opportunities to participate in extracurricular activities, more school-based events, more positivity being promoted on campus, both inside and outside of the classroom. Students also noted higher or significantly higher levels of student engagement as a result of implementation of the cell phone policy. And so students also mentioned that there was a significant increase in positive communication, where they feel more in the know about what's happening within their school. And they had an overall positive outlook and are looking for the improvements that the middle and the high school have made to continue. I also wanted to acknowledge that as we speak, we are inducting 37 students into the National Honor Society. Two of those students, one 11th and one 12th grader, are Oaklyn students. I don't want to share their names because they haven't been announced yet, but we will share that during our next meeting. We're extremely proud of all of our students. And so students were nominated and inducted based on their demonstrated scholarship, service, leadership, and character. And we just want to acknowledge Ms. McDevitt and all of the recommending teachers for supporting our students in this nationally recognized way. We also want to acknowledge our theater students. On October 27th and 28th, they hosted Outdoors and Night Park 12th Night, which is an abridged version, a play by William Shakespeare. And so it was a free production, and sword fights, love triangles, shipwrecks, pranks, and all of those other kinds of things. And so our students the ensemble of students is extremely diverse in age, experience, and talent. And so students, we've got students that are great actors, and we've got students that are great at production, students that are great at music, students that are really good at making sure that logistics and the artistic set design, all of those core things went extremely well. And so we also wanted to acknowledge Miss Whitman for her commitment in leading the production, and then specifically all of the student leaders that were involved, and there are many. Bless you. And there are many. Last month, we presented district test reports for both Oaklyn and Collingswood, and those district test reports have now been posted on both district websites. And so the assessment data indicates that we continue to make meaningful progress across multiple grade levels in English, language arts, math, and science. But the data also indicates that math and science in particular are still areas in need of attention. And so one of the things that we've really drilled down with, as you heard during some of the programmatic updates here in Oaklyn, is this emphasis on math. starts with making sure that students have sufficient time, and so the increase of additional time, especially for our students who will be transitioning out of the Oaklyn school into the middle school next year, was prioritized by the leadership team in this building. Looking at the way in which we intervene and the way in which we provide targeted levels of support for students. And so students really fall under three major categories. You've got students that are far below, you've got students that are below, and then you have students that are approaching. And so those three target groups, with the largest group being students that are approaching, is where the school is really focused its attention on. And so what that means is that we've shifted and we've moved a lot of students from the bottom two tiers to the approaching, with many of our students right on the cusp of being on grade level. And so in many cases, students need one or two more questions correct to be on grade level. And so we're putting a lot of effort in making sure that we're moving more students over the line of proficiency so that it puts them really on a positive trajectory as they move into middle school for next year. And so we will continue to adjust our practices. We will continue to look at data. One of the things that Oaklyn, now in year 2, did when you made the decision to change the schedule was to not just look at standards, but to also look at strategy. And so students are grouped into different bands of performance in the small groups that you heard about earlier, but they're also really unpacking it and getting granular in their data with strategy as well. And so it makes it easier for students to be able to not just learn from the teacher, but also to learn from each other and pull each other up collectively. And so what we're seeing is that we're going to see a pretty significant bump in student performance, specifically in math, by the conclusion of the second trimester. And so that's really what we're focused on. And that concludes my report.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, moving on to section 9, the board secretary report, business administrator report. Mrs. Coleman.
Okay, and then item 9.01 is a listing of your October monthly transfers. 9.02 are your board financial statements, your board secretaries and treasurers reports, and cash reports. 9.03 is a listing of the purchase orders that have been issued for Oaklyn in the month of November. 9.04 is a listing of the warrants that will be paid tomorrow morning, pending approval tonight. And I'm going to continue on to do the Mr. Taby's report because he's under the weather. So items 10.01 through 10.06 are those items that I just mentioned. 10.07 is is a renewal of the lease that Oaklyn has with Collingswood. The 5-year lease agreement for the preschool space that Collingswood has upstairs is coming due. It expires in 2024. So we are, this is the renewal lease. This way both districts can budget for the preschool programs. 10.08 is your 3-year renewal membership in the Burlington County Insurance Pool. 10.09 is your annual comprehensive maintenance plan that needs to be submitted to the Department of Education Office of Facilities. 10.10 is a tuition contract to the Woodland Board of Education for a student that was placed by DCP&P. And that is it. I'm looking for approval for 10.01 to 10.10.
So
So, motion to approve those items. Yep. We have a second. All right, moved and seconded. Are there any questions?
yeah, just one comment, and Beth Ann made this change yesterday in the lease agreement for the preschool program to add an escape clause in, and the wording is just a little bit off. It references, with the wording that was added, you reference school, but lessee is the word that's used earlier, so I think we should change school to lessee just for consistency.
Great, thank you.
Ready?
Any other questions? All right, on a roll call.
Mrs. Ezekiel?
Yes.
Mrs. Falpel?
Yes.
Mr. Stotts?
Yes.
Mr. McMillan?
Yes.
Mrs. Marmion,
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mrs. Butchko.
Yes. All right, moving on to section 11, the curriculum report.
All right, so good evening. We're seeking approval in item 11.01 for a field trip to Philadelphia Independence Hall. Again, these field trips always look really cool, and I want to go on them. Item 11.02, we are looking to approve our 2024-2025 preschool plan and projected enrollment. The documents are there for you. I know the one document was a little tough to see. I believe our enrollment projections were the same as before. You see our annual preschool operational plan there and the additional information. Item 11.03, we're seeking approval for tuition reimbursement in the amount of $2,200. Item 11.04, seeking approval for the placement of a student teacher, practicum and mentoring student. Item 11.05, we were seeking approval for the following substitutes and tutors, excuse me. It's a combination of both. And 11.06, we're looking for approval on a travel expense report that was to attend the New Jersey Library Association conference. So we are seeking approval on items 11.01 through 11.06.
Is there a motion to approve those items?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? All right, on a roll call.
Mrs. Ezekiel,
Yes.
Mrs. Falpel,
Yes.
Mr. Stotts,
Yes.
Mr. McMillan,
Yes.
Mrs. Marmion,
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mrs. Butchko.
Yes. All right, moving on to section 12, the School Community Relations and Policy Committee. Therese.
Good evening. Item 12.01 is the PTA liaison report. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend, but the PTA did meet on Tuesday, November 7th. Among some of the highlights, they reported on some teacher grants that were happening, and they will be offering teacher grants to nurses and the social worker as well, which was interesting. The membership report and correspondence secretary, Michelle Oaklyn, will be stepping down, but the PTA is boasting 140 members currently, and at the end of last year we had 170, so that's great progress. There were reports on the fall classroom parties, which were great successes. Things coming up are the Oaklyn fire truck or tree lighting, I guess, at Borough Hall. That's been it says fire truck lighting in the minutes, but that's coming up. I believe November 30th. That the chorus is or the choir is performing at. There's a green team costume swap that happened around Halloween. That was great. I'll skip to that because that's a MASAC, and I'll say that next. Ms. Bolden did say, just in the interest of talking about the health curriculum, another place where she was talking about this was the PTA meeting, where she had said that spring conference time will be happening before the health curriculum implementation in the third marking period. So that's another opportunity as well. So again, that information is getting out there to parents that way as well. And then upcoming events, the chess club continues through November. There was a dine and donate last week at Blue Monkey Tavern. There was a yoga family night on last Friday, the 17th. And the holiday parade in Collingswood, there will be a PTA, as Denise had mentioned. The holiday shop is December 4th through the 8th. There will be a winter holiday event or winter event on December 16th from 12 to 2. And I believe that's it. The next general PTA meeting will be December 5th, 6:30 here. Item 12.02 is the OMASAC report, which I will also provide. The gym night on November 3rd? Was that? I thought it was, what was it, November 3rd? I thought it was the 17th. But sorry, I've got conflicting information. The last gym night in November was a big success with 63 kids. OMASAC did partner with OPS for Red Ribbon Week. I think we talked about that at the last meeting. The next gym night is December 15th, and OMASAC is sponsoring an assembly coming up. And then item 12.03 is the Collingswood Board of Education report. Mr. Stotts.
Okay, thanks, Teresa. At Collingswood's board meeting on the 23rd of October was it's a two-pager. Student reps were sworn in for the 3 sending district, or for Collingswood and the 2 sending districts. The Woodland rep was not there. The Oaklyn rep is Alexander Stutzman. Collingswood rep is Trey Ramsberg, if any of you know any of these kids. Windsor Yamamoto presented the test scores. Joe Gersick presented the SSDS report. Committee of a whole discussed test results, safety report, and projected budget problems for 24-25. Public comment. There were 2 teachers that made a statement on, I want to say, the statements in the Collingswood board. They were concerned about the ongoing budget potential problems. Public comment, and Wayne Rossi was there once again complaining about the SLA, and he didn't think it was appropriate. Superintendent discussed various activities in the district. The financial reports were approved. The jointure with the South Bergen was approved for transportation of 1 student. Athletic transportation was approved with Hillman Bus Company. They approved a shared service agreement for maintenance with Gloucester City. They accepted the school violence grant of $602,000 for 3 years. They approved pre-K restraint training. They approved special sublet service agreements. Approved several sublet service agreements. They approved middle school and high school field trips, approved out-of-district placement for a 9th grader. They approved retirements, resignations, and leaves, not a great many of any of those last month. Approved a new psychologist and several substitutes. They approved ESL tutors. They approved 7 individuals to go to Leadership Academy. They approved PLC leaders. They approved non-athletic stipends, approved a student family liaison, approved subs and tutors, approved travel expenses, approved 4 policies on first reading, anti-racism on a second reading, and they abolished the policy on public relations. There were no HIB incidents for the prior month. Approved standing orders for nursing and emergencies. They approved the job description. Public discussion again was our friend Wayne was back again for the second time. They discussed the calendar. They were concerned about some of the half days, which is being addressed, I'm sure, this year with Dr. McDowell. And they adjourned at 9:14. It was a short meeting. Questions? Complaints?
I do have a question, actually. I think this is for Dr. McDowell, but the Wellness Center, and forgive me if I'm not calling it the correct, is that what it is called? Are there plans, I'm just as a board member and, with our students going to the middle and high school, are there plans to have a report on the progress of that or anything? I'd just be curious in the future for that.
Yes, we wanted to make sure that we were fully up and operational, and so it's been kind of like a whirlwind. And so we did a soft launch in March, but we didn't add middle school until September, and so the end of the first marking term is now, and so we should have some level of data showing us fully operational and fully staffed. And so I'll work on that and try to get something probably for presentation maybe in January.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the year would be wonderful. It would just, maybe after a year of it in operation or a year and a few months or something like that. But I will commend that mention of it is at the top of every middle school communication to parents. That's all that I get. So I think that's great.
And I have a question. Did you say $602,000 grant for 3 years?
Over 3 years.
Over
yes.
3 years.
Yeah,
I thought
over
it was
3 years.
each year. Okay.
No,
Sorry.
over.
And what is that? What does that apply for?
So the focus it's through the Department of Justice, through their Department of their Justice Bureau of Assistance, and so the focus is really building capacity around behavioral threat assessment, building capacity around positive school culture, and then making sure that there's training and that there's systems of support in place in order not just to be more responsive in the event of negative situations, but also making sure that things like restorative justice and restorative approaches and community building becomes more dominant, so that the need for additional safety and security measures is drastically reduced. And so they believe that by building a more connected school, by making sure that staff are really focused on community building and understanding how to respond when students are harmed, and having meaningful systems in place to receive students when and if students have made poor choices and return to school, is the mechanism to increase school safety. And so what we're going to be using is targeted professional development. We're also looking at some safety equipment within the buildings, within the secondary campus and middle and the high school. Some that's attached to the building, some that actually is equipment for staff, but a lot of professional development. And then we're currently looking at bringing on some additional staff during that period of time in order to assist with building capacity, with the goal of weaning ourselves off of some of those extra supports after we built that capacity. And so we've got 3 years in order to utilize those funds. About half of those funds are really around capacity building, professional development, and people. The other half are really around equipment, technology, and so forth.
Do you think? It sounds like it's more restorative. Is it proactive too? Is it like a little bit of?
That's the focus. So the
Okay.
focus is really around positive behavior, intervention and support, restorative approaches. Also looking at behavioral threat assessment and putting systems in place so that there's early warning signs of when students are struggling or when students maybe thinking about causing harm either to self or to others, and then making sure that there are off-ramps and access to supports in order to get students what they need in the event those things happen. And then making sure the staff are appropriately trained to be able to see what's happening and to be able to make the necessary referrals to be more proactive and preventative rather than punitive.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Item 12.04 is the report of the Oaklyn Education Foundation. Mr. McMillan.
OEF has not met again. I'm going to reach out and see if we can get a final end of year meeting before the new year. So hopefully I'll have something next month.
Thank you. Item 12.05, we are seeking approval on a first reading of 6 policies that are listed here. And I'll just make a note that item 12.07 is the abolishment of 3 policies that actually have been combined into the last one on this list, 8500 for food services revised. Item 12.06 is the second reading of 3 policies that we approved the first reading at our last meeting. There are no regulations that need to be approved at this time, so we are seeking approval of items 12.05 through 12.08.
Is there a motion to approve those items?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any questions? All right, on a roll call.
Mrs. Ezekiel,
Yes.
Mrs. Falpel,
Yes.
Mr. Stotts,
Yes.
Mr. McMillan,
Yes.
Mrs. Marmion,
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mrs. Butchko.
Yes. All right, moving on to section 13, miscellaneous. 13.01 is to move on the recommendation of the superintendent for the submission of the New Jersey Quality Single Accountability Continuum. That's NJ CUSAC. District Performance Review, DPR, documents to the New Jersey Department of Education. Is there a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any questions? Hearing none, on a roll call.
Mrs. Ezekiel,
Yes.
Mrs. Falpel,
Yes.
Mr. Stotts,
Yes.
Mr. McMillan,
Yes.
Mrs. Marmion,
Yes.
Mr. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mrs. Butchko.
Yes. All right. Moving on to section 14. This is the second public comment section. So this is for any item that you want to bring to the board. Please stand, state your name and address, and keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. Are there any comments at this time?
Can I put a parent hat on real quick?
Sure.
Cool.
Do you want to go here? Yeah. Let's talk as a parent.
James McMillan, 201 Landis Avenue, Oaklyn. There's been, so now I have a child in middle school and I have a child here at Oaklyn, and it seems like the calendar half-day situation is really confusing because we have the picture of the calendar with the slashes, and then on the bottom side are more half days that no one, like I'm not recognizing, and I know a lot of other parents are not recognizing. And I was wondering how we can get maybe consistency on actual half days listed on the calendar on the visual side, and so it's like a surprise for a lot of people, it seems like. So that's all.
I'm going to answer part of your question. So part of it is that those half days are not district-wide. So some of them are Collingswood Elementary. Some of them are Collingswood Middle and High School. And very often those are the same. And then there's also Oaklyn half days. So for instance, teacher conferences are only at the elementary, but not at the middle and high school. So it's hard to put those on the district-wide calendar because it doesn't affect the entire district, right? So those things would be on the supplemental calendar. There are additional half days in Collingswood because of the PLCs. Am I saying that right? Which Oaklyn doesn't have because we approved a later start time a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. So that's what I know about the calendar, but maybe Dr. McDowell can add something else if you have anything else.
She kind of nailed it.
Yeah, I just think, if there's, I understand the two districts between Oaklyn and Collingswood, but it's just a little confusing, and I don't think I'm the only one. So that's all.
So the plan is to do a drastic edit of the way in which the calendar is presented moving forward. And so I will say that taking a page from Oaklyn's book is it was a bold step last year for Oaklyn to make a change to the start and stop time in order to prioritize collaborative time for teachers. As a result, teachers in Oaklyn now have 40 minutes every single day for collaborative planning time, for targeted levels of support, and as a result, teachers are coming together more frequently, they're getting more granular, and students are receiving more personalized instruction. And so last year we made that change. We made subtle tweaks this year, as you heard in the presentation earlier, to prioritize specific skill sets by grade level. And so 5th grade was who we targeted this year. Collingswood will be making some pretty dramatic shifts, taking a page from Oaklyn with teacher collaborative planning time, the reduction of all non-contractual early dismissal days. And so there will be more information coming out probably sometime in February or March for the upcoming year.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And we're trying to get everything to one page.
Great. That'd be good. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback on Mr. McMillan's question, what's the rationale between having one district? I might have answered my own question, but one district calendar. Like, would it behoove us to have an Oakland district calendar? I understand
Right,
that.
but I mean-
Thank you. I'm saying I'm understanding a rationale. I'm sorry. I'm playing devil's advocate. There is a rationale. Maybe there isn't. Maybe it's just for ease. But I'm guessing there's a rationale behind that. And I'm just wondering if it's been discussed to have an Oakland calendar and a Collingswood calendar. All right, I'm not. I'm in the same two worlds, so I do get confused. I thought Oakland also had a supplemental calendar. We don't. Okay. Okay. Then moot point. Sorry.
But still, yes, it makes it even more confusing because you're like, oh, there's supplemental here and there, and then yeah. So
These kids just wouldn't grow up. We'd be fine. But
I also just want to point out too that there are difference because there's two different union contracts between the contractual early dismissal days as well. So, for instance, at the end of the year, Collingswood has an extra half day that Oakland doesn't have. Correct. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So the reason why there is a supplement to the traditional calendar, for one, is state testing dates are not available at the time where we annually approve calendars. And so those dates always come after. And then as a result of those, then we end up backing up some of the other dates. And so districts are ahead of the state in terms of planning a year in advance. And so we're always, having to come back and then make adjustments based on the dates that we receive much later in the year from the state.
if I could make a comment to my comment, maybe we could use some colors on the calendar, and then so if it's going to be a supplemental day, that it's maybe not. It could be a different color. Just an idea for the 24-25 school season.
Anyone else? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?